But let's talk about this VP thing because um, I've never seen anything like this either. I mean, all this stuff that we're doing we're watching is pretty unprecedented, but we are watching a primary for the vice presidency where it's as if like it reminds me of like one of those like contests, when you were a kid, it was like, I don't know, like the boys club or something, or
Mhm.
the girls club would say like, send in your favorite catchphrase, that the boys club's going to advertise for. And so like nobody's in competition with everybody, but there are in competition, but
Yeah,
you're not
yeah.
going right at your competitors. You're
Right.
just like coming up with the best way to, advertise for the boys club or whatever it
Uh-huh.
was at that time. And that's what seems to be going on here.
Yeah.
Maybe you hear these dribs and drabs and people dropping, negatives on people into the press that'll never be, the fingerprints
Mhm.
will never be seen again. But that's what seems to be going on. And it's fascinating and it's incredibly effective. Like I would love to figure out like how can we put this into effect, for future races, because
Yeah.
you're just like a pilot program for how do you attack the Republicans.
Yeah. And it's great because it turns out that there are a lot of really, pretty talented politicians that are in this, that are competing for the best catchphrase and, of course, selling themselves in the process. And, people have been saying for a long time, this was happening, during the Biden period, when he was running. One of the things that everybody was saying was you need to get surrogates out there. And the idea was is that these surrogates were necessary because he was, kind of incapable of
Right.
sort of selling his record and selling the future and selling his agenda. But they weren't doing it. I mean, you had Gavin Newsom, you had some others, but really, for the most part, this just wasn't happening. So all of a sudden, what happens is VP race comes up, starts, the comes up in this sort of weird sort of moment, and all these people come out and they're great surrogates. I mean, they're really really good. Even the ones who aren't in the running, like I thought that Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, on that call the other night, he was on the Zoom call for the white dudes for Kamala, and he said, he was funny. I mean, he was really funny. He said, well, I'm doing another Zoom right after this. It's going to be, what was it? Couches are
Gotcha.
couches against Trump. It was couches against Trump, the couch thing.
Right.
And then he said, we call it cats, which, you know, I mean, it's just funny. And yes, it's insidery, it's online, it's all this thing, but you need some of that to get people interested, and also to sort of show that these guys are, they're quick. They're not, living in another world. They're living in the world that we're all living in. And you have Walsh, you have Shapiro, you've got um,
Bashir.
Bashir, you've got Kelly down in Arizona, all of whom have certain qualities, some, I like more than others, I mean, and I'm not quite sure what her criteria is going to be because it all depends on how they want to position this
Right.
ticket. And maybe they want somebody young and vital. And, I mean, I think it's pretty clear it's going to be a white guy. I'd be very surprised if
Well,
they didn't pick a white guy, but,
it is a total DEI pick, right? I
right.
mean, we know that.
We know
It
that.
is,
Yeah.
there is no women who are being included in this.
No.
Gretchen Whitmer is out, even though she would be a great candidate. I think,
Yes.
maybe the strongest, frankly,
Yeah.
of all of them, but it's a DEI pick.
Hmm.
You don't see Wes Moore in there because
Right.
only white guys. It is a DEI pick, just like Joe Biden was a DEI pick as
Yeah.
well
Yeah,
at
which
that time.
maybe all political leaders are DEI picks to
On
some
some
extent,
fashion. It's
aren't
just
they?
that we
Yeah.
have expanded who gets
Right.
included, what diversity means. It's no longer
Exactly.
we have a white guy from Massachusetts. We're going to need a white guy from Texas, and now
Right.
it's
Right.
actually you could have some other sort
You
of
could
other
have it. Yeah.
qualifications. They don't just have to be white guys from different geographical
Right.
locations. But what I also one point I want to make that I think you raise here in terms of the bench, the difference between 2024 and 2014. In 2010, Barack Obama, the Democrats got slaughtered on that off year
Absolutely.
election.
Yes.
And over the
Absolutely.
course of Barack Obama's presidency, Democrats lost 1,000
Yeah.
elected positions across the country. governorships, state treasurers, attorney generals, state senators, state assembly people. I mean, across the board, the
Yep.
Democrats got wiped out. In 2018, I should say in 2022 and 2018 for that matter, people like Bashir, Shapiro, Whitmer,
Yep.
Pritzker. In fact, all of the
All
people,
of them.
Kelly, like all of the people in the running right now,
Yep.
all came in these off-year elections where Democrats had gotten traditionally wiped out. And so now you have like, you're building up the minor leagues again, as it were, and all of these potential leaders in the future. And we get a better notion of like, how, where their politics are.
Yeah.
And so that is a fascinating thing to see. I
Yes,
mean,
it
it
is.
is one of the things that I think like maybe from a historical perspective, people are going to compare, Biden's presidency versus Obama's. Now, a lot of this also has to do with like the, the era and, changes within the Democratic Party in the country
Trump. Yeah. There's a lot of
Trump. I mean, there's a lot of other factors, but it is definitely, a huge issue that,
huge.
second order issue that we're seeing now, the implications of it.
And wouldn't you say too, just not to digress too much, but that would have the same effect on the courts, because having a Democrat in there able to get the to compete with the with the just the federal judiciary being able to put people in there over time, that's probably going to show
Oh my gosh.
as
Well,
being
well,
as being an advantage.
we're, it's gonna be muted to a certain extent because of the venue shopping that we're seeing now, where everybody's
True.
going
Yeah.
down. Oops, sorry, don't mean to thumbs up there. I
It's a
don't know how to
thumbs up.
turn that off. But with the venue shopping that we're seeing, where they're all going to the one judge in Texas at this point. But over time, we're definitely going to see that, and you're also going to see it in the context of, particularly one of the things that Biden has done, fantastically, and we'll talk about this, and hopefully, like, it'll be in the context of, Donald Trump is not president or president-elect and whatnot, but not only has Biden, put the pedal to the metal in terms of getting justices on the court, and they took this very seriously, and they had all the nominations ready to go, basically so that the Senate wasn't waiting on them in the way that the Senate was
Right.
waiting on Obama. But the diversity, and I don't mean just in terms of like, race or gender, but I'm also talking in terms of like the type of law that is
Yes.
practiced. We have more civil rights lawyers who have become
Public
judges, public
defenders. Yeah.
defenders who have become justices, even like plaintiff attorneys who have become judges. And what that does, the second order impact of that is people in those positions begin to, don't stay away from those jobs in society because they think it's a dead end in terms of like ultimately becoming
Right.
a judgeship. I mean, it was for a long time, like, you have to join the Federalist Society or you're in trouble.
Right.
If you're a member of the American, the AJC, I can't remember what it stands for, but the liberal version of the Federalist Society, that was a liability during the
Yeah.
Obama years. And so it has knock-on impacts. Do you have a favorite vice presidential, or do you have one that you think that is a bad pick?
I have a favorite, but he's not going to get chosen. It would be Pete Buttigieg, who I think is a pretty
Really?
brilliant. Yeah, I think he's a
Okay.
pretty brilliant. Not in terms of policy necessarily, but just in terms of his. I think he's a very very talented communicator. So I like the idea of seeing that, but he's not going to get chosen. And I don't really have a favorite. I think Josh Shapiro has some baggage that could be potentially hurtful in the coalition that is not necessary to do. I'm not, I know that he's got a positive in terms of Pennsylvania, but I think, and Tim Walz, I just think is just a terrific guy. I
Yeah.
just have to say, I really, really like him. But the one thing I think they may be leaning toward Bashir, because when you see the picture of those two, the youthful kind of
Yep.
ticket there, the contrast between that and youthful experience, a lot of gravitas in terms of their experience and abilities compared to Trump and the weirdo freak show that he chose. I think that might be the strongest ticket.
I've been if I had to have bet, I would have been betting on Bashir, and I still would. I mean, I'm with you on Shapiro. Aside from my political issues with Shapiro, the education people, just people who believe that you should use the state to crack down on a particular ilk of protesters.
Yeah.
Also, and then just, more specifically, people who are invested in care about what's happening in Gaza and our Israel policy.
It's
and
just
there's also
acute,
some weird Me Too stuff that is sort of like second order, may not be fair.
I didn't even know that.
Well, he supposedly was very slow, if not sort of a little bit cover-uppy for a staff member who had a Me Too issue.
It wasn't him.
No, it wasn't him.
God,
and that, there may be other stuff, but that seems to me to be enough to let's not make the ticket.
We don't need to. There's so many other good people.
Here's the other thing that people don't talk about. In addition to, Shapiro's, he's got a 49% approval rating in Pennsylvania. That's good. Mm-hmm. That's not bad. And he won big, but he also won big off against a really bad candidate. Let's be clear on that too. I mean, was it Mastriano was his name, or I can't remember exactly, but I mean, he was bad. I mean, he was bad. He was one of the worst.
Let's talk weirdos. Yeah.
Total weirdo. Yeah. And, Kentucky, they call that area Pennsyltucky, or at least, some people do. Andy Bashir, you don't hear this much. He has the highest approval rating of any Democratic governor in the entire country. It's somewhere around 75%.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh my God.
75% in Kentucky.
Mitch McConnell's home state. Yeah.
For whatever reason, you just don't hear that much. But his approval rating is through the roof in Kentucky.
Amazing.
And, I think they tried him out in Forsyth County in Georgia, which is an area where Kamala Harris, no Democrat, will ever win. Mm-hmm. But I think, there's two elements of this. Is one, you run up those numbers in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But you control the margin in which Donald Trump wins in places like Forsyth County if you want Georgia, and Kamala Harris can run up the number in Atlanta.
Yeah.
There's no Josh Shapiro's not coming into Atlanta and, adding to her vote tally.
No, you're right. You're right. That makes sense.
Yeah. They're looking for a contrast, and the best, and it's a DEI pick again. Send that DEI pick to those places where Kamala Harris is not going to go. And,
and he could challenge Vance's claim to this Appalachian, regular guy 100%. Thing, because Bashir's from Kentucky, for crying out loud, and I think he has the ability. He seems to be sharp. I mean, I don't know him that well, but I know he's been very successful.
In addition to being one of the most popular governor, or if not the most popular Democratic governor in the country, maybe second, but I think he's first. Walz could be up there too, I would imagine, but he's in a blue state.
Yeah, totally different.
He has enfranchised something like 190,000 voters in that state, in Kentucky.
Wow.
I mean, I have no other sense of his politics. He's been in a red state, and he could be, more conservative than I would want, or he could be one of these people like, I'm a progressive, running in a red state, and so I'm going to, get where I can and
he saved Obamacare. I know he saved Obamacare there in Kentucky. I mean, that's pretty important real life accomplishment in a red state. Everybody else is dying on the vine, so.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.